Okay, so you already know who I am, so we can jump straight in. I'm going to start with saying a few words about what we're not going to discuss today, because this is going to be our kind of baseline where we start from. And it is already back in 1959 when scientists, and this is not only one place that it was presented, but scientists already brought a clear voice about the idea that whenever we burn conventional fuels, we create carbon dioxide, which it's present in the atmosphere, cause a greenhouse effect. And as we know, this again, this is from 1959, and this was indeed what we've seen ever since. More than that, scientists already presented the effects of that. And here, as we see from Professor Taylor, who was already a famous scientist, not just like someone from the margin of scientists, if the world kept using fossil fuels, the ice caps would begin to melt and the sea levels would begin to rise. Now it is not working for some reason. Okay, and indeed, this is what we've seen. This graph presents us the amount of ice that melted in Antarctica only since the beginning of the centuries. In the last 25 years, we've seen this amount of gigatons of ice that are melting. And as a result of that and of other processes, the sea level is rising. Again, only from the 90s we see that, and all that as a result of the temperature that are rising, which are the result of the same carbon dioxide that they mentioned in the 50s. Greenhouse gas that we see in an amount that is way above the natural amounts that we've seen in the past. And what we see here is the graph that shows how for hundreds of thousands of years the Earth had been cycling in cooling and warming and cooling and warming and cooling, but we are not in this cycle. We are way above the level that have been all in the past ever measured. And actually, if we were part of the cycles, we were supposed to see now a cooling trend and not where we stand today. And the fact that climate change is already well established, and in Israel we see that as in an even faster and a little bit more extreme pattern, because the temperature are increasing in Israel faster than the global means. It used to be double than the global average. There's still no data from the last couple of years, so I'm not sure if it's still, but we've been witnessing in Israel a faster increase of the temperature and a faster increase in the warming of the seas in the Mediterranean, basically. So we can see here that according to the Israeli Meteorological Institute, we may be facing 4 degrees temperature rise Celsius by the end of the century. And we see here 2 graphs, the red and the green, because that depends on what we're going to do about it. So the green is if we are going to change drastically the way that we emit, and the red is if we continue as usual. And the effect in Israel is going to be several ways. I'm going to mention that, but one of the major ones that is already being witnessed is the decrease in the total rains that we are witnessing. And again, that is going to be a pretty much crucial decrease by the end of the centuries, according to any of the scenarios, but it depends how we're going to act. And that causes the fastest warm of seas in the world that we're witnessing in the eastern part of the Mediterranean. So this is all known, and the fact that we have to stop using or find the way to stop emitting from fossil fuel, this is the place we start from. And it's important for me to kind of emphasize this, because I'm going to now move on to talk about how can nature be part of our solution. Not only can be, but must be part of our solution. But that does not take the role of our stopping emitting. So we cannot only put our trust in nature, as sometimes we really try to, and we hope to. And when people read a lot about how nature can be part of our of the ways that we handle climate change, they think, okay, so we just, we need to plant more trees, we need to have more nature. Yes, it's true, but it cannot be done alone. We first have to stop emitting, and then we can start. This is I just wanted to mention that this, we know that from, I mentioned from 59, just to have you understand, that is before the Beatles released their first single, and before we heard Martin Luther King saying "I have a dream," and before the men stepped on the moon. And we have to understand that before we start talking about nature and about the inseparable nature of climate, biodiversity in our life. And this is what we're going to talk now. Because what we're going to talk now is, after we understood that we have to stop using fossil fuel, how can nature be part of our solution, and why nature must be part of our solution, and especially in places like Israel. So nature-based solutions that we're going to talk about are the way that we must act to protect and restore ecosystems, because they absorb carbon dioxide and they can help us shield communities from the effect of climate change. We must invest in the three of them: conservation, restoration, and sustainable management of nature. Because this can provide, and that is according to the United Nations committees, they can provide a third of our requirements by 2030. That means they can allow us get 30% of what we need to do, both for emission reductions and for adaptation in the climate change perspective. And if we look at it from this angle, if we try to understand this inseparableness of things, we can look at this again. This is a graph from the IPCC, the International Panel for the Climate Change Convention. We can see on the left side that today we have climate change impacting ecosystems in huge ways and in grave ways, and their ability to help us and adapt and mitigate are getting weaker and weaker, and are already in a weak situation. While if we understand this correctly, we can move to the right side, the future of climate change, connection between those systems, where the ecosystems can be a huge part in adapting and mitigating climate change, and then we would get much less impact on them. So this is a kind of the circle that we are aiming for. How nature can protect us and how nature can help us. So we're talking about the two issues when we talk about climate change. Probably some of you well know those terms. Nature can be part of our solution to mitigation, that is reducing the effect of climate change, because nature in its natural processes fixes CO2, and as I said, can actually absorb a very big amount of this CO2 if we are going to treat it as we need. And it can also help us in adaptation. That is how we are going to prepare ourselves to the day, or actually to the day that is today already, when we're facing more flooding, more heat, less diversity, more fires. So both things are we can have nature help us with. A crucial thing to understand is, today, even our emissions that we emit today, which are more than 50 million tons of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, only less than half, or about half of the emission that we actually emit, greenhouse gases emission, I mean, actually get to the atmosphere. How can that happen? What happens to all the rest of the emissions? They are captured and fixed by nature, by forests, by wetland, and by the oceans. This is how strong is the power of nature. And the way that it is done is by the, as I said, the natural processes, the major processes according to with which nature actually absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and prevent it from getting into the atmosphere back, are majorly by photosynthesis, which is happening both on land, in the trees, and in the sea by the phytoplankton photosynthesis, and by other respiration processes, again, terrestrial, on land, and in the sea. And this is what we call the carbon cycle. And according to recent researches that were done, there are a few of them, but they're kind of amazing. We could achieve a huge amount of mitigation, of absorbing these gases by nature. In this research, she managed to calculate that we have three processes: by protecting nature, which means making sure that we have natural reserves, we're making sure that we do not take more forests and turn them into cities or neighborhoods, right? Just making sure that land is protected. We could save 4 gigaton CO2 per year, which is out of the total of 50-something gigaton that we are emitting. Okay, this is a relation. So we can save about 4 by protecting, another 4 gigaton by managing better the forest and the land that we have, and another 2 by restoring, which is something I'm going to talk about, what's happening in Israel. Taking land that is ruined and that is emitting actually, and rewilding it, making it nature again. Altogether, we're getting to about 10 gigaton out of about 50 that we emit per year. That is a significant amount. So this is our potential. When we talk about adaptation, that is how we're going to handle the changes that climate is bringing with it. We can see that just using the powers of nature will allow us several of the most important things that we need. For example, one of the major things that is happening is that we're having more floods and coming with climate and extreme events like flooding, and the way that nature works, if we can harness nature into our in a right way, we would discover that the rivers are one of the best way to regulate floods. Okay, again, it's not news, but that rivers can regulate floods, because the way they are created is actually naturally created to absorb floods. But after so many years in which we have been taking rivers, putting them into concrete canals, and narrowing them, making them like straight lines so we can live next to them, we now understand that if we just allow the rivers to flood naturally, we will be able to regulate the floods. And the same goes to temperature regulating, to make sure that our cities and open areas, which are much heated now, can be cooled just by trees and water. These are all natural ways that we could use to face the changed reality. So nature-based solutions, what are they actually? They leverage the nature and the power of a healthy ecosystem. We just learn from nature, and we use what we learn from nature to protect and safeguard our healthy life. And there are basically 3 ways that we could use that. First of all, to decrease the greenhouse gases emission, then to capture and store carbon dioxide, and to enhance the resilience. So mitigation and adaptation. And from this, we're going to move to Israel. What is the role of Israel in all that? I'm just gonna have a look if there's something in the chat that is so far from me. Just maybe raise your hands because my chat is not open. So let me know if there's something that I should refer to.
Myron has some thoughts that I'm sure you can read later that you may want to take with you.
Okay. So yeah, I'll open that in a second. So when we talk about Israel, there's some things that are important to understand, because many times people think, oh, Israel and climate change, Israel is just so small, and then it pollutes very little. So why is it relevant to Israel? And there are several answers to that, which we can answer in the sense of emission-wise. But I want to talk about the importance of Israel, even though it's small, in the nature aspect. Israel is located in a very strategic place, not only geopolitical, as we know every day, but also eco-wise. Because Israel is, what we can see here is a research from Nature, which tried to check if we would have to save only 2% of the world ecosystems areas, what would be these places? And there is this map that includes these 2% of the world, which include 1.4% of the biodiversity hotspots that are the most important places for hotspot. And as you can see here, our little bridge, Israel is part of that. And the reason is that we are, well, there are several reasons, of course, but some of the major reasons are these. We are just on, we are kind of the bottleneck of a very important flyway of birds. When I was a child, I don't know if they do that today, but when I was a child, we learned almost every fall this poem by Chaim Nachman Bialik. In Hebrew, it is called Shir LaTzipor, and it is about a boy that is sitting in the window and he sees this bird. In Hebrew, it is Shalom Rav Shuvech Tzipor Nechmedet. Maybe some of you know that. But it says basically, welcome back, sweet bird, from the warm lands to my window. To your pleasant voice, my soul have longed in the winter when you left my residence. He's writing this when he sits in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and he sees the birds coming back from the warm land, from Africa through Israel, and he's like, he want to hear what this song has to say. But the idea of the birds flying from Europe to Africa in the spring, in the fall, when it's getting cold in Europe, and then coming back in the spring is a very part of, like, every Israeli child, I think. And for a reason, it is one of the most important migration ways for birds, because they must have, and these birds, when they migrate, most of the birds, not all of them, but most of them cannot just fly over the Mediterranean without places to stop. They need places for stopovers. So they are flying through the Middle East and through Israel. And we have millions of birds flying twice a year through that. Beside the birds, we have, or it's not beside, it's part of the same ecosystem. We have a huge amount of fauna and flora, increasingly high. When we try to compare it to other countries, we see the flowers, how dense they are in Israel in the upper graph, comparing to several countries, including the Netherlands, UK, France, Italy, California, Greece. So yeah, huge amount. And when we look at the birds species generally, but this is specifically birds checking, we also see how dense is this place with so many species there. And so what do we do with that? Okay, so we understand that we have a very unique ecosystems, and we understand now that they are important globally, and we understand that globally there is a huge importance to ecosystems in order to face climate change. And this must be a global perspective, because the birds, when they fly from Europe to Africa, they see no, they don't understand that Israel is small or big. They know that this ecosystem are of huge importance. If something happens to this ecosystem, it will impact, of course, the birds in Africa and in Europe. And this is a chain and a system that is connected, and we cannot just look as part of it and say, okay, we isolate Israel is small, we do not have to deal with that. So the SPNI, חברה להגנת הטבע, has been working on campaigns to conserve nature and to but up until recently only to conserve nature for many years now. It's not new. The Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel is the oldest and the biggest environmental organization in Israel. It's an NGO. It has nothing. It receives its income only from members and for work that it does. It's a non-governmental and of course not for revenue purpose organization. And it's one of the first campaign that is famous, that the first people who just established the organization was the one against the Hula drainage, the Hula wetland, which partly failed because of all kinds of reasons. We can discuss them, but there was some success in managing to restore and bring back some of it, the small lake, the Agamon of Hula, which is again of huge importance to the birds, and it's become one of their favorite stopover, the bird stopovers, and in there. And that is from the 50s. We're talking. We had several campaigns that really made sure that we still have wildflower in Israel. Not alone, not only the SPNI campaign, but it's the SPNI that led the campaign to make sure that we are prohibiting the picking of flowers through the a campaign for the forest on the Carmel Mountains, and the campaign to maintain the coast in Israel, and up until two major projects that SPNI has been leading, and I want to discuss them. One is the Gazelle Valley in Jerusalem, and the other is the rewilding and restoring of wetland in Israel. So I don't know if you've been there in the Gazelle Valley of Jerusalem. This is a story that began probably about 15, 20 years ago, maybe even a bit before. This place is just in the middle of Jerusalem, not between the Begin Road to Yad Mordechai, if you know the area. And it used to be, in the past, it used to be agricultural land. And then after that, some private people bought it and wanted to build a neighborhood there. There were plans to make a neighborhood. And there was a huge campaign of people resident in Jerusalem and with the Society for the Protection of the SPNI, which ended successfully in the Jerusalem municipality deciding to turn this into a natural area, which will be the place, the home for the original Gazelle family that lived there. They were like about 30, 40, and then when Jerusalem started to build, they were at I think at the lowest point, there were only about 10 gazelle there. Today there are more than 80, and this project was important. It started for the gazelle. They were the one that started it, and it has a huge biodiversity today, and very important also educational spot. But more than that, it is also, before that, it is also of huge importance for adapting to our climate change, because what was planned in this valley is really imitating a natural valley. That means an area which will allow absorbing floodings. They basically plant dams and places for the water to be maintained through flooding, so they can improve the seepage of the water into the water. The water can flow more slower. So if we have a big amount of water, then they they can keep this water and prevent them from flooding. They also allow the cleaning of the water. These water are coming from all over Jerusalem into this river. There are two rivers that are basically flowing into this valley, the Rakefet and the Rehavia rivers. So this is a full ecosystem that allow biodiversity, allow water management in a way that prevent and mitigate floodings in the winter. Of course, also allowing educational and some place to come just cool down in the heat summer or in the winter. So it's an imitation of the full ecosystem in the middle of the city, and this is one way where we could also already see, like, since it's already finished. The park was open in 2015. We can really see how this vision can realize, which is kind of amazing. And the other project is, and after that I'm gonna open for a little kind of discussion and hear your thought, is the project of Start of Nature. And Start of Nature is an idea of how we can take back the wetlands that we used to have. So many wetlands well, we used to call them swamp now in Israel. And when Israel was established, one of the major Zionist idea was that we must drain the swamp. And it was true for some reason. Majorly, it was true because this land was required for agriculture and for capturing. Some people say also for malaria, even though we know today that the malaria was gone before we drained the swamp. But those swamps were of extreme importance. And after we don't have them anymore in Israel naturally at all. And what we've found that since we really need them, they're important for the birds. They are important for the aquatic habitat for many other creatures and living, and they are important for the climate. Wetlands, as you know, around the world are one of the most absorbing carbon dioxide ecosystem that we have. So what we've been doing is locating places that are of opportunity. What happened in Israel that many of this area, they were kibbutzim that made fish ponds, fish farms for growing fish there. And these fish farms have been slowly being dumped in the recent year because the fish industry has been through all kinds of changes. They become less economic to grow fish. And now we have these ponds, these farms. Usually they are in the area where it used to be wetlands or some kind of pools. And they can be now recreated as a natural in the natural ecosystem. We have several places that we've spotted that would be the best opportunity and most important from both ecological perspective and economic perspective, like it's feasible. And these in the Hefer Valley, or through the coast of the Carmel, Zvulun, in the Hula Lake itself, and around Bet She'an. And one is already already taking into execution part, and that is in Kibbutz Kfar Upin, just south of the Kinneret, of the Sea of Galilee. There was a small reservoir there, which was a fish pond, and it's been, after a long and hard work, it's been basically restored to be a wetland, almost as it used to be, almost, because of course nothing is already naturally totally natural, but it uses only natural water from the natural ponds there. No energy is put into like bringing water or something, and the intervention is it's very minimal. And the idea is to create more places like that, more wetlands and more ecosystem that will serve for both agenda, for nature conservation, for the sake of nature, but also as part of our huge contribution to climate change, to the global climate change, both adaptation and mitigation. Majorly adaptation, but also mitigation. So let me know there's a few other slides that I can show, but I would like to hear if there are questions and thoughts, and I will now try to open the chat. We didn't open. No, maybe I have to stop sharing to see this chat. Okay, let me open this, and then if we need, we'll go back to the slides. Okay. I'm just reading some of but you're welcome to come, jump in and ask question. I'm just having a look at the question in the chat in the comments.
Scott is asking about whether there are organizations in Israel, SPNI ? That are working to oppose new fossil fuel development, such as the offshore oil projects.
Okay, so that is a great question, because as I began with, we are like SPNI is a nature conservation organization. So kind of the first intuition of the organization was, we're not going to deal with those things. But as years went by, the organization understood that there is no one else to do that. So yes, we're actually doing that. We are there are not many organizations that do that, but there is at least one or two organizations that are also involved in that. It's a very, very tough battle, because as some of you know, Israel is relying today about 60-70% of its energy is coming from natural gas from its offshore. And it's been like that in the last 15 years. The industry is very strong, very much connected to whatever it needs to be connected. And unfortunately, that comes on the account of moving to renewables. So we still have about 11-12% of the energy coming from renewable energy in Israel, which is very little. So the battle is tough, but we actually filed a petition against broadening the natural gas industry, because right now the government is actually trying to make new drillings. So we do that, and you're welcome to contact me if you want to know more about that.
Sarah asks, is Israel committing to the 30-30 global movement to preserve 30% by 2030?
So yes, actually, Israel is part of most of the conventions, including the Convention for the Biodiversity and the Climate Change Convention. Actually, when we talk about land, Israel is not far away from the 30-30. We have about 25-26% of nature reserve. Which is not bad. It's not perfect, because some of them are not preserving what we need to preserve. There's something that we really need that are scarce and we need to protect, and they're not inside those nature reserve. But it's not bad. In the sea, we're in a much worse. We have very little. We have just a couple of nature reserve in Israel, which are in the Mediterranean, and they're small. There's a lot of work to do there, and we're working on that too.
Can I ask if you see the indigenous people, like the Bedouins, like that being a climate justice issue? Like, I know with the Native Americans, it can be a climate justice issue. Like, they're afraid that we will be demanding their lands for the 30%. Can you see that becoming a problem?
So it's interesting. I actually see there's not much. We're not working much about climate justice, but there are some organizations that are working more. But specifically, I believe that the environmental agenda is quite aligned with the Bedouin, actually, with the population in the desert. what we've seen in the desert in Israel, in the Negev and in the areas of Beersheba, where there are Bedouin communities, is that sometimes the state is trying to use environmental kind of arguments to take land, for example, to plant forest. But we have been showing that these forests are not good for the environment. They're not natural. They're actually causing, at least for the first 100 years, there is one forest that was planted there, Yatir forest next to Beersheba, which we saw that actually causing a warming effect, because wherever you have a desert which is bright, its color is bright, it's actually reflects sun. And when you convert that with a forest, it becomes almost like putting a black blanket in the middle of the desert. It absorbs heating. So it's true that in 100 of years, these trees are going to start absorb CO2, and they might, and it's probably gonna start maybe balancing, but it's not the natural place for them to be. So so from what we see, it's the nature aligned with its natives usually.
Thank you.
Yes, I see there is someone else is raising your hand, but I'm not quite sure what's your name.
Yeah, so that's me. I was just wondering, are you work in the area of plastics pollution, since we know that that's the fossil fuel industry, as there's less demand for fossil fuel for transportation, they're trying to ramp up their plastics, and there is that international law that's being looked at, wondering whether Israel's weighing in on that. And then I know that there's been some pushback, I guess, in the Haredi community against sort of trying to get rid of plastic cutlery and single-use plastic, and also any fees for plastic bags are trying to go back to how it used to be before in the olden days. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So we don't have any specific campaign or something about plastic. Of course, whenever there is, we work a lot of policies. So whenever there is, for example, a bill that is coming up, like the one that was to ban or to tax single-use plastic, we are supporting. And then when they cancel that, because of ultra-Orthodox were highly opposing that. And there was also people saying, okay, the ultra-Orthodox women, they are now gonna, it makes them much harder to, much hard work if they don't use. So yeah, we're not into this, we're not doing a lot of things in that aspect. I don't think Israel is part of the initiative, in the global initiative. The one thing that was actually implemented is the cost on plastic bags in supermarket, which was a great success. We had maybe 10 years ago a new law that put price on plastic bags, 10 cents, very low price, but it reduced the amount of plastic that people are using to a great extent, like 70%. These are what the numbers are saying. So yeah, not a big actor in that. Yes, please, Myron.
Oh yeah, I need mayor. But anyway, so I want to say that I said a couple of things about electricity in the chat. In my opinion, and I think the International Committee on Climate Change agrees that we have to electrify our industries and we need to make the electricity production clean. And that's the key to the majority of the climate problem. If you disagree, I'd love you to assert it. But my expertise is in the electricity industry, and I'm wondering what is going on with Israel. It's such a center of innovation. Has it done anything noteworthy about producing renewable energy, innovations, energy efficiency, innovations, load flexibility, innovations? Do you know about those? I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so it's a question that we always ask. How come Israel, who is such an innovative hub and also has innovation in the field of solar panels, I'm not sure about climate efficiency. If I'm not familiar with some great innovation of like startups or anything that are working around that, but definitely has the ability to move. How come we're not using that? It happens with a lot of innovation in Israel that that people are inventing it in Israel, but they don't implement it. The electricity sector in Israel is, as you probably know, very centralized. Highly centralized in the hand of the government. It's been a little bit better. It's been privatized. Part of the sector was privatized and moved to private companies. But most of the sector is held by the government, and that makes everything really difficult because the regulation and the ability for private entities to connect to the grid is a huge problem. Everything must go through the grid, through the government's grid, and the electricity company is putting obstacles for many years. It's not new because they're a centralized company. They don't want to give away their power, and slowly there have been all kinds of changes made, and it's better today. I know that now, actually, in the last few months, because of the war, because the gas stopped flowing for some of the time because it was endangered, and they were afraid that missiles will hit it. So some of the natural gas facilities closed, shut down. So this caused to some regulatory relief on renewable energy to get easier way into the grid. But we do not see a lot of innovation implemented in Israel in that sense in the electricity. And I agree that the idea that it all has to be electrified and then the electricity should be produced from clean energy is understood, and I think this is the desire, but we're very far from there.
If I may, I want to point out that in the US, 98% of our electricity is produced by investor-owned utilities, and they have pretty much the worst record of giving us clean energy. It's the municipal utilities that have the best record. And so the fact that it's private or not private isn't the problem. It's the attitude of what the utility is trying to do. And it's a utility run properly is a moneymaker for whoever owns it, but it's actually stealing from the poor and giving to the rich, the way they operate it in most places in the world. And that can be turned around. So the innovation isn't just in technology that you can, see. It's also in the technology of how the rate design is set up and how the utility is run. And I have invented solutions for that. And if we could migrate that to Israel, it would have a big impact on the amount of renewable energy, low flexibility, energy efficiency is actually built into your economy. One of the major international energy experts in the world has pointed out that we've already reduced our carbon footprint by 60% worldwide by energy efficiency, but nobody knows about it because that's done. And there's so much more to do. For example, electric cars are 5 times as efficient as internal combustion engine cars.
Yeah,
Tamara,
thanks for that.
we only have a few minutes left. I know that Myrtle also posted a question, but you had a few slides left, so I want to give you the opportunity to
Okay, thanks. I would just say, I totally hear what you're saying, and I think that the problem in Israel is that the interest of the industry and the government are maybe too much aligned in that way that, but if the government will decide to change that, I agree with you that it would be easier even than in a private market. So coming back to the nature, I will just say that the United Nations also declared this decade to be a nature positive by 2030, which is something that we could think of if we want to think of what kind of target do we want to put ourselves in order to kind of harness nature to our needs. And that means that by 2030, we have to stop being all the time in a situation when the state of nature is declining. We have less land, less natural land, less species. We're still there. We're still in this trend. We want to move into the place where we start to have more nature, more species from 2030. And the idea of that is because we can't stop growing. Population will not stop now, still grow. We need to find a way to work together, growth and nature. So for that, we must, first of all, make sure that we conserve and protect as much nature as we can. But whenever we cannot, we have to restore and we have to bring back nature into places that we haven't. And again, as you all said, this is part of our fight with climate change. It starts with fossil fuels, but it must end with our understanding of how nature must be part of that. Because also, if we stop emitting tomorrow morning, if we continue ruining our nature, that would not be enough. If we do not have nature to absorb the pollution that we still do, and the pollution that is in the atmosphere, and to mitigate and to allow us adaptation, even stopping fossil fuel will not help. And in that sense, Israel has a very important role and position. So I hope we will, like Espe and I will continue to do that. And I invite you to have to contact me if you have any other questions. And yeah, maybe in the kind of last comments, if you want to add before we say goodbye.
Well, I asked about midbar is used in the Torah. Do you think it means wilderness or desert primarily? Because I think it has big ethical consequences and spiritual consequences for an eco-Jew or a Jew who is an environmentalist.
Yeah, I read some about it, but it's really not my expertise. I don't know about what was the real meaning. I think as many other things in the Torah and in other texts, it's up for us to a lot of interpretation. And I would say that we should interpret in the way that that is more equal. But I'm really far from being an expert in that, so I'm not gonna go there.
Scott is
Would you
asking
speak about the
how
Arhava
we can
Institute?
contact.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you speak about the Arhava Institute?
The Arava Institute. I'm not part of the Arava Institute, so I know it. I know they're doing a great job, but I'm not in the place to present them even, or they're doing a lot of important work about working with nature and peace processes and neighbors relationship, which is great important.
Would you like to drop your contact information into the chat for?
Sure. Let me put my mail.
This has been incredibly interesting, and we had already planned to visit the Gazelle Valley next winter when we go back to Jerusalem, but now I'll know why.
I highly recommend.
So interested in partly in the relationship between people and parks and natural lands, and how we can coexist that way so that we benefit each other and not
Right. Yes, I highly recommend, and if you can take a guided tour there or just go see the guides there, that would be even more
amazing.
successful. Yeah. So thank you very much, and yes, you're very welcome to contact me if you have any question or if you want to contact the organization. And
Thank you so much. Toda rabba.
בבקשה, and חג שמח.
Chag sameach. Thank you for your brilliant work as well as for this presentation.
Thank you. Okay. So Thanks, and I understand there is a record, and just let me
Hannah,
know.
Hannah Henza, who probably contacted you about this, is responsible for the recordings. Yes.
Okay.
Did you put your email in the chat? 'Cause I don't see it yet.
Yes, I did. It's
near the.
here it is. It's Tamara L. Tamarl.
Oh, I think you may have sent it just to one person, not to the group.
Oh, right. Right. Now I see.
Well, people aren't gonna see it now, but
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that.
there's a way to get it. All we have to do is write to the organizer and they'll send you your
Yeah.
email address, which I've done already.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that would be the best. Thanks. I put it now.
RL@spni.org.il. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Let me just say, Tamara, that I was a national leader in the National Sierra Club starting back in 1982. And we worked on the whole class of issues that you work on. I was chair of conservation for the Louisiana chapter. That's the New Orleans and Louisiana is in the center of a major flywheel, similar to what you say Israel is for the North America. And we have one of the biggest wetlands in the world around Louisiana. But we also have the dubious distinction of being the state in the world that has the highest carbon output because of our industry. But it also puts us in a position where we know who we're fighting and we know how to fight them. And that means that if we figured it out, it might work anywhere. We have globally scalable solutions about how to solve utility regulation problems like the kind you say you have in Israel. In fact, in most of the industrial world, you have utilities that have broken rate designs and broken ability to encourage the renewable energy efficiency, and load flexibility needed to really address climate change. And so I have those tools, and I'd love to partner with you. I think we have complementary skills to solve this problem. We need everybody on board.
I'm happy to hear. Yeah, if you drop me a mail, I'm happy. We're very happy to hear from your experience. We're looking for all cooperation that we can in this fight,
Okay.
and definitely.
Yeah.
And I think you might benefit also from being in touch with the Beyond Plastics organization. They do a lot in with fossil fuel and plastic, and maybe I can send that to you. Thank you.
Okay, right. Yes.
And Tamara for everything you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Samaya. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
There's
Samaya.
another session in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.